Hello students, welcome to Vision IS. Recently, US Department of War has dropped the term Indo from the Pacific Command. So this has drawn a lot of controversies and strategic comments from Indian side. In today's video, we'll be discussing what exactly is the meaning or the significance of this move and how does this impact India. So let us start with the main or the key developments with respect to this. So the change which has happened is that US has officially reverted the US Indo-Pacific PACOM back to its original name, that is US Pacific Command. Now you must be wondering what exactly is a command. So command essentially is a US military presence, a unified military presence which is across different geographies all across the world. So in general, US has 11 military commands which covers the entire world. So US has Africa Command, Central Command, Cyber Command, European Command, etc. So recently you may have heard about the Central Command which was in news because of the US-Iran war. And now we are talking about the Pacific Command. Now the Pacific Command is the oldest and the most largest command in the world from the US perspective, and it was formed in 1947. In fact, 1st January 1947 by the US President Harry Truman. Okay, so it has held the PACOM name for over 70 years. Now, what exactly has the US explained in terms of the rationale? So the US has explained the reason. The Department of War has said that the revision honors the military legacy and builds troop pride. So what it means is that US has said that the move is largely symbolic in nature. As such, there's not going to be any major impact in terms of its troop presence, in terms of its operational strength, and in terms of the geographical area that the US Pacific Command would cover. Now, if this is the reason, why would US change the name in 2018? So for this, let's understand three major reasons for which US had changed or added the Indo word in the Pacific Command word in 2018 under President Donald Trump, right? So first thing was, there was a need that the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean are not exactly different in terms of the challenges that they face and in terms of the opportunities that they bring. So in other words, the challenges which Indian Ocean face will have some sort of repercussion in the Pacific region as well, and vice versa. So this interlinkages was first pronounced or first enunciated in a prominent way by the former Prime Minister of Japan, that was Shinzo Abe, who mentioned this or gave this foundational ideological construct in 2007 in the Indian Parliament. So this idea that Indian Ocean here and the Pacific Ocean here are interlinked was given by Japanese PM Shinzo Abe, right? So this idea, this basically laid the groundwork, the framework for the Indo-Pacific construct. Secondly, the reason why this construct was emerging was because of the rise of China, and China, especially under the President Xi Jinping, since 2012 has been adopting a very muscular policy, especially when it comes to the South China Sea. You may have heard about the construction of the 9-dash line and territorial claims of China over various Southeast Asian region. So in a way, because of the rise of China, there was a lot of disturbance in the Pacific region, and also China was constructing a lot of military presence in the Indian Ocean region as well. Now, because of this rise of China, US and other allies started to look at India as a balancer or as a critical partner, because India has a central presence in the Indian Ocean region. Along with that, India was also a very prominent member when it comes to the growth and the market that it can provide, right? So because of both the geopolitical reason and because of the geoeconomic reason, India was looked upon as a critical partner. And because India, there is a centrality in terms of Indo or Indian Ocean. That is why the term Indo was added along with the Pacific, right? So this is the whole origin behind the construction or the ideation of Indo-Pacific. Now, we'll talk about, since this move have happened, what exactly does it imply for India? Is it necessarily a bad move, or does it signal a more larger shift? So when it comes to the change, as such, according to the Department of War, it doesn't symbolize a major shift. It is largely a symbolic means, or so it will basically tell us that there is a zero operational change as far as the troop location or as far as the whole mandate of the Pacific Command is concerned. So in a way, there is no major change in terms of, or no major implication on India. But it also signifies a major shift in US foreign policy, because remember that in international relation or in geopolitics, symbolism matters. It indicates shift in priorities. It indicates shift in ideologies. So with respect to US strategic priorities, we can identify 2-3 major points. One is with respect to transactional bilateralism. This means that US operations or interactions will not be dependent on ideal or on the various value-based approach, but it will be on what the other country can offer in return. So the whole approach has become more and more transactional in nature instead of value-based approach. The second major priority that is reflected through this symbolic or this move is that it reduces the spans of operation. So earlier, Indo-Pacific was supposed to be from the west of Africa or east of Africa to the west coast of US. But now the span of operation is going to be largely concentrated to the Southeast Asia or the Pacific region. So in a way, this change could impact the span of operation or the geographical extent of operation. And thirdly, it also will in a way signals that US is willing to make concession to China. So in a way, this has implication for Indian security, especially in the maritime domain. Remember, India is looking at Russia when it comes to the continental balancing of China. But when it comes to the maritime balancing, it is US that India looks into. And here, there's a huge possibility of emergence of G2, which basically means that US and China coming closer and establishing the world order according to their design. Okay. And lastly, this will have a consequence for the institutions that are present in Indian Ocean, especially pertaining to Quad. Quad, as you all know, contains India, US, Japan, and Australia. So these are the implications for India. Now let us understand why Indo-Pacific matters for India, because as such, Indo-Pacific is not just a geographical construct for India. For India, it is a major imperative to project its power in the 21st century. So now when it comes to the importance of Indo-Pacific for India, it has both, or it has three major importance or component. One is the geopolitical construct, the second one is the geoeconomic, and the third one is geostrategic. So when it comes to the geopolitical imperative, the most important one is to contain the rise of China, especially when it comes to Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean region. And you may be aware about a formulation that is string of pearls. So string of pearls is nothing but Chinese presence in throughout Indian Ocean neighbors, right? Where the whole idea is to encircle India. So some of the examples are Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, Gwadar port in Pakistan, right? So this is something that could really be a problem for India. The second one, with respect to the geopolitical reason, is upholding a rule-based maritime order, right? So these are all geopolitical in nature. So by maritime order, we mean that India wants every country to adhere to the UN clause, right? That is UN Convention on Law of Seas, right? And to provide a freedom of maritime, all these things. Second important component is geoeconomic. And from the geoeconomic perspective, Indo-Pacific is the center of global economic activity because around 40% of the global trade, especially when it comes to India, they pass from Indo-Pacific. 50% of the world GDP is there in the Indo-Pacific, and it also has several important energy security and global choke points. For example, we all know about the Strait of Hormuz. We also understand that there is Malacca Strait. All of them are global choke points, and they can be weaponized during the time of war, right? And lastly, it is important for projecting India's maritime influence, which would be covered under the geostrategic imperative. So under geostrategic imperative, we know that India's vision of Indo-Pacific is through a formulation called SAGAR, that is security and growth for all in the region. It is also associated with India's Act East policy, Link West policy, right? So India's approach towards this region is largely to ensure that India is providing security to all the littoral states. India is providing growth opportunities. India is promoting maritime domain awareness. India is also helping in the non-traditional security threats as well, right? So these are the importance of Indo-Pacific for India. And I hope that this discussion has helped you clarify the significance of this recent move made by the US Department of War. Now, if you have understood the concept, please test your understanding by attempting this question and write your comment in the video, in the section below. Thank you and all the best.